afternoon. It's time to do some business, and some private reference bureau operators are blaming the 7 collapsed indigenous banks for failure to heed to credit advice furnished them. The bureau is responsible for collecting personal details of borrowers of funds and gathering data on borrowing and repayment information from various sources, including creditors and banks, whereas the information gathered are subsequently shared with potential lenders. But in an exclusive interview with Midday Business Chief Executive SDS Data Ghana, George Ahiafo says most banks do not make do of credit information given them by the Bureau.
Went aggressively to educate the banks, about the value or the effects of the Credit Reference Bureau services. At that time, maybe because of the nostalgia, I think they were using it more, they're a little more inquisitive. Currently, whether or not they're using it for every single facility that they're giving out, or whether the banks are reporting all the facilities to us, is another issue. We don't have any way of knowing that. But if that is going on and they are actually doing their due diligence, which is pulling a report from the Bureau and checking the background before determining whether or not they should give you a facility, if that is being done, the NPL should have been low, and been well maintained at a much lower level. But if you don't do that, you're just taking a stab in the dark, because you don't know who you're lending to, and then they default. You don't know what their exposure is, how many other loans they have out there, but then you add yours to it, and probably yours is the one that's going to break the camel's back. So this is what's going on. So we need to go a little deeper in it. We have reports that can tell you exactly how your portfolio is doing within your bank, and then how the portfolio is doing in relation of the entire financial sector. These are some of the things that we feel the financial institutions can employ so that their NPLs will not be a problem. Now, what's been going on with the closure of the banks is there's no reason why the NPLs should not be dictated earlier on if they're using the Bureau services, because they would have seen the non-performing loans.
We're doing some energy story now, and we're off to Norway. Deputy Energy Minister Joseph Kujo says Norwegian oil company Aker Energy has finalized agreements to commence operations in the country. Aker says it could begin oil exploration at the end of 2021. Daryl Kwao has the latest from the official opening.
Busy day at the Clarion Hotel, where the Offshore Northern Seas Conference and Exhibition has officially opened. The big names in the oil and gas industry are all gathered here to market and look forward to opportunities to grow their businesses, and Ghana is not left out. Now, the CEO of the Petroleum Commission officially welcomed the Ghanaian delegation to the conference and exhibition.
This is not a joyride, this is a business trip. Our expectation is that before we all go back, each and every one of you would have gotten business. Because contracts, subcontracts, and maybe subcontracts will be awarded, and it is on the back of this that you are all here. So go to the companies, speak to them, find pairs, find companies that operate in your sphere of operation or business, and build the needed linkages. Otherwise, when the contracts start coming, you may be found wanting because you don't have a foreign partner.
Well, for the Deputy Minister of Energy, Joseph Kujo, there are great expectations, especially for Aker Energy, which is expected to do business in Ghana soon.
At the moment, all the relevant agreements have been signed. AK Solutions has its right foot in the country, and we're looking forward to the company starting its exploration and development phase to come in earliest time possible.
Well, Ghana is here at the invitation of the Norwegian energy partners. What is in it for us? Well, that is what we asked the director, Africa Midstream at Norweb.
Ghanaian companies will mainly focus on the Ghanaian market, I assume. So they will then just have to familiarize with the project development of the Aker Energy project, what is a contract strategy, and try to be part of those companies that are bidding for contracts on the Aker Energy project. And then, as you know, companies, Aker Energy will also have to then work with local companies to get them on board in the different supply chains necessary to be developed to deliver a project by 2021, as you suggested.
It's only day one and there's plenty to look forward to. Darokwao, Norway.
IMF country director has asked Ghana to balance its infrastructural development with its enormous resources. Nathalia Kalidina gave the advice as she prepares to end her tenure of office in Ghana.
The most difficult part was probably 2016 and the run-up to the elections. And we all know that. The question was whether the program will perform or it will not perform. So these were difficult times. Obviously, I learned a lot during that period. And I hope that we all learned from the past experiences and that it would not really happen again.
Finally, any advice to policymakers as you close the chapter and say bye-bye to country Ghana? Any advice to policymakers?
I don't want to say bye-bye to Ghana.
Sorry, maybe you still come back in a different capacity.
We'll see. Well, I think what's important is really to balance infrastructure development needs with the resources that Ghana has. Ghana has enormous resources in terms of natural resources, people, young population. This all needs to be put to use. At the same time, it does not all require government financing. There are so many people, I've just mentioned women, who are so active and they would like to put their knowledge, their skills, their talent to use for their country. So the government needs to balance what they are going to support and support good business environment, create opportunities for people.
We're off to the GMPC now, and Chief Executive Officer of GMPC, Dr. KK Sapong, has dismissed allegations of conflict of interest against him in the purchase of property from his former company, Global Haulage. Dr. Sapong is a former group CEO of the private firm. He's said to have authorized the payment of $7.5 million for a cluster of flats for GMPC staff in a gated community at Chapel Hill.
That when you are connected to an institution, it doesn't mean you cannot do transaction with the institution. It depends on the disclosures you make.
But then again, yes.
If I had kept it to myself, that I didn't know anything about the institution, and I did the negotiations of the transaction, that would have been really conflict of interest. I know the institution. I disclose that I know the institution. I do not get involved in the negotiations. I didn't do the evaluation. I didn't do the negotiations. It's done by a separate committee, which I recuse myself. They bring the report to the board. The board approves it. My role as chief executive, I'm paying. That is not conflict of interest. You must look at the details of the transaction. If I did the negotiation, that's different. I did not do the negotiation. The board has got a subcommittee which looks at properties and acquisitions. They look at
Dr. Sapong, you mentioned earlier that you needed to take this unusual step because the vendor needed the money. Was this need related to the injection of capital into Royal Bank?
Well, for whatever reason, I wouldn't know. You bought your property, you've executed all the documents, they brought your invoice for payment, your staff is not there. Who is holding it? And therefore, you say they should not be paid. If they took the money and they were injecting into the Royal Bank, so be it. But there will be nothing.
Well, let's meet again in the next 17 minutes as we bring you the marketplace. My name is Odilia Ntiamwa.